Serial entrepreneur Janette Searle founded Take My Hand, an organisation that collects usable medical equipment destined for landfill and transports it to the Asia-Pacific region to be reused by those in need. Ms. Searle also founded other ethical businesses, including the Playground Creative Project Management Limited and the AW Collective Impact Initiative, and she joins me now. Janette, thanks for coming in. Let's start with Take My Hands. Explain quickly exactly what the organisation does.
So we work with health providers here in New Zealand and collect usable medical equipment that they don't need anymore and was destined for landfill. And then we work with health providers in the Asia Pacific region and essentially get that to them with transport and logistics partners.
What sort of equipment?
Everything from artificial limbs, hospital beds, crutches, you name it. We're needs driven, so it's whatever those health providers in the Pacific need.
It's such an obvious win-win. So how did it all start? Where did it come from?
It started back in 2010 when I had a bit of time on my hands. I was doing some sort of part-time work, was at a conference with prosthetists and orthotists, and was just chatting about what they did with all the old artificial limbs, and they said that they'd just dumped a 9 cubic metre bin of them, even though they were totally usable. So that kind of sparked something in me, and I jumped online, found the Hope Rehabilitation Society in Pakistan, who have a Limbs for All project. So they're a professional clinic, but they've got a whole side of what they do that works with people that otherwise wouldn't have got a limb. Talked to a transport company who went, yep, we can get, if you need it, we can get it up to Auckland, and off it went.
That sort of thing costs a lot of money, though, suddenly transporting stuff to Pakistan.
Yeah, it did. But, well, no, it didn't cost me very much at all. It cost me $50 because I was able to... Essentially, I said, look, this is a one-off. There's 400 kilos of limbs in Wellington. I need to get them to Auckland. These are the people it's going to go and help. And they went, well, we'll just do it. That's no hassle for us at all. The $50 was just to cover some customs fees. So it was just kind of tapping into the fact that they had spare space within their truck that they could use and offer. So that's one of the things that kind of sparked that whole wanting to get into using spare capacity where it exists,
right.
Keep the actual cash cost as low as possible, and essentially connect those that have with those that need it.
How come Pakistan? Was that just because...
They answered.
Right.
Pretty much.
So you spread the message out saying, hey, I've got all this stuff.
I can access the stuff. If you want it, I can probably get it to you. They came back. I did some research. I want to make sure that who we're working for working with are kind of reputable. Yeah. So I did some research on them to make sure it wasn't super dodge or anything like that, and it wasn't. They had a good reputation and some quite long-lasting relationships with some good organisations. So, and that first project, it was something that I just kind of did it on the side, and it was only ever going to be a one-off, and so it was like, kind of under the radar. But they were super smart, and they sent photos back of the people that had actually received the limbs that we had sent. And so, of course, I sent that out to the people that had helped, and started to get more interest. And in 2012, essentially it turned into something that I either needed to do properly or just flag it. It was getting to the stage I was getting dodgy looks from neighbours because my garage was looking really super dodgy. Yeah. So that's when we established as a trust, but we operate as a social enterprise. And that was simply because of the structure that we needed to access some of the funds we needed to kick us off. That was the structure that we chose at the beginning.
Yeah, so I mean, at what stage does it... I mean, it's a profitable enterprise?
Yes, it's a profitable enterprise.
Which is important because otherwise it just wouldn't continue, do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a very different life from your initial sort of professional working life at TVNZ.
Yeah. Yes and no. I think my role across everything that I've done, if I was going to look at my role as sort of producer and production manager in television, and I've managed bands and was really involved in the creative sector, essentially it's placing business knowledge and practices and models at something. So it was creative sector, now it's social change. And that's kind of my whole thing, is about applying business knowledge, models and practice to whatever it is I'm doing. And at the moment, that is absolutely about social change.
And you still do run businesses in the creative sector as well?
Yeah, the Playground still does some stuff in the creative sector as well, but most of what I'm doing is social change.
Yeah, it's an obvious theme here with your businesses, businesses with purpose. Was that always the intention? Although you sort of fell into this, was that the reason why you wanted to do it?
Yeah, it was. What I found with working in the creative sector and working in the corporate sector and that sort of thing is that, especially in television, nobody really cared if it was a green shirt or a blue shirt or if a song was made. And I wanted to do something that actually people would care if it wasn't done. That was kind of what drove me. And I wanted to use the knowledge that I had, which was around, business and organising things and making stuff happen. So how could I apply that to what it is I wanted to do? Yeah.
You found it much harder than for social enterprises, purpose-driven organisations to succeed?
No, I think as long as you think differently about it, like I'm a firm believer that impact doesn't have to be at the cost of profit and vice versa. And so it's about thinking differently about where you place value, how you operate as a business. So it's about, partnership, like the whole idea of tapping into spare capacity. The story that partners get through contributing their spare capacity to us is far greater value to them and their customer at the end than discounting or bundling or anything like that. So there's a win-win there that they can contribute something that they have anyway and it's not costing them any more necessarily to provide. They're able to tell an amazing story about how they're contributing back and how through their normal business they're able to do some good, which then improves their perception to their paying client.
So is that almost your funding model, giving people a reason?
Yeah.
It's fantastic, isn't it? What drives you personally?
Two things. One of them, like I said, is about wanting to do something that really made a difference. If I didn't do it, it was going to make a difference. And the other thing, probably a little bit selfishly and maybe egotistically, is I really want to create something that is bigger than just me. So the intention with anything that I'm creating is that it will go on without my involvement. And so that's, the intention I start is that one day I'm not going to be involved in that. And it will create, want to create its own kind of legs, if you like. To become its own thing. So that's my personal, ego-driven, I want to leave a legacy. Yeah. Yeah,
fair enough. And you shouldn't be embarrassed, but you shouldn't put that down. Yeah. You should celebrate that. What sort of support did you have initially for Take My Hands?
Support in
other people helping you out rather than just the people you were operating with?
Yeah, so I when I set it up, I called on two amazing women to be my fellow trustees. So one of them was an accountant, for obvious reasons, and the other one had massive experience with the machinery of government, and a lot of the equipment that we were getting was initially government funded, so I wanted to make sure that we dotted I's and crossed T's and met those kind of obligations. And then at the other end we were working with government, so we often work with ministries of health, and so understanding the machinery of government was really important. So essentially I've looked for, and our board has grown since then to include medical expertise, IT expertise, transport expertise, that sort of thing, looking at what were the gaps that the business had that I needed to fill and where could I get the best advice and support around that. And then they contribute in a bunch of different ways. Sometimes it's quite hands-on, other times it's through connections. So.
And how important is it that you have the right people around you?
I'd say it's really important. You have to find your champions. And I, with clients that have worked even in the creative sector, particularly music sector, it's like if you find your champions, they will give you everything. So whether you are, making furniture or you're trying to change the world, surround yourself with the people that both are your champions and really believe in what it is that you want to believe, because that's how it will become something bigger than yourself, but also have the knowledge and skills to contribute something really meaningfully, because otherwise what's the point? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, how profitable is something like Take My Hands?
At the moment, I would still put us in a startup. So, I mean, even though we've been going for sort of 6 years, and if we only looked at the financials, like we're very much startup, but when we start, we place a lot of importance in impact value. And so as purely financially, we operate at under 100,000, sometimes under 50 grand a year. But when we look at the impact value that we're having, it's over $8 million.
I guess that also translates into that being probably what the big achievement is out of this.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's your operating costs and that's your impact value.
Yeah.
that's something you'd be very proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think from a profitability point of view, I mean, the people that need to be paid are paid. Those that want to and can contribute their spare capacity do that. We do tap into volunteers for loading days and all of that kind of stuff, and it's their way of giving what they can give. So we've got a bit of a mixed model if we were looking at where resources and revenue streams come from. It is a mix between cash and time and resource, but that's the model that we've chosen right from the beginning. And I really believe it's a model that I think if you apply to other areas can create, a massive amount of wealth and impact. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at. It's a different way of thinking about business.
Yeah, and there are others doing the same thing, all successfully, it seems. Janette Searle, founder of Take My Hands, thanks very much.
Cheers.